In this video, I want to use another example of the chain rule, and I want to use it to do something that's kind of cool. This isn't something that you get quizzed on every year. It's not a formula that you necessarily need to memorize. It isn't on our reference table, but it's still an interesting fact that gets used from time to time. And that's dealing with derivatives of inverse functions. We've been talking for years and years now about the notion of inverse functions in math. That's something that a function that undoes another function. Like for instance, if I add 5 to a function, then another function subtracts 5, those two undo each other. I get the original number back. If I take a positive number and square it, then I can take the square root, that gets me back to where I started. So taking the square and taking the square root are inverse functions. Same thing's going on with exponential and logarithmic functions. You can remember from algebra 2 that if you take e to some power, and then you take that result and then take the natural logarithm of the result, you get the number you started with again. So there are all kinds of inverse operations in mathematics. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to use the chain rule to see how you can find the derivative of a function knowing that it's the inverse of some other function. All right, so let's say that we've got two functions f and g that are inverses of each other. So what does that mean? That means that if we take g of x and then we take f of that, what's the result going to be? Well, if f and g are inverses, then f is going to undo whatever g does. So the result of this is just going to be equal to x. So now that we've got this identity between f and g, let's go ahead and we can take the derivative of both sides of the equation. This is in the form that we can use the chain rule. So this says that f prime of g of x, you take the derivative of the outside function and apply it to the inside function, and then you multiply that by the derivative of the inside function. So that's equal to, what's the derivative of x? Well, the derivative of x is just 1. Okay, so now we've got this equation. We want to figure out what g prime of x is, so we can just solve this equation for g prime of x. And that's easy to do. We just divide both sides of the equation by f prime of g of x. And we get that g prime of x is equal to 1 over f prime of g of x. And this is called the inverse derivative rule. And it's a handy thing to know, but you can see, even if you didn't memorize it, you could just use the chain rule like this to kind of derive what it is. And in the next couple videos, we will show some examples of how you can use this information in order to find some derivatives. And really in these cases, we're just going to be verifying things that we've already seen by using the inverse derivative rule and indirectly by using the chain rule.